It's time to look at the papers this morning, and with me in the studio for that are two gentlemen, lecturer from the University of Lagos, Dr. Daniel Kere, and lawyer and public affairs analyst, Jide Ologun. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on the program this morning. Let's head straight to the papers, and it starts with the Daily Times. Presidential election, I scored over 18.3 million votes against Buhari's 16.7 million. Atiku, ex-vice president, PDP hallucinating, suffering post-election depression, says APC. PDP drags Justice Iyang to NJC for halting Bauchi governorship results collation. And then we'll move to the Vanguard. PDP, Atiku in post-election trauma depression. APC, PDP's prayers at tribunal at best hollow, ridiculous. APC, PDP didn't have a plan B, just wanted to rig the election. Kiyamo will reclaim our stolen mandate through the courts. PDP. We move to the Punch. Runoffs, Abdusalami panel meets parties, INEC, police tighten security. PDP petitions NJC over judges' ruling on Bauchi results collation. To the Nation now, presidency spanks PDP for threatening to stop Buhari. That's the major headline there. Opposition says it may seek court's order to block inauguration. And we move to the Daily Trust. Northeast, not central, battle for Senate presidency. PDP plot to retain Deputy Senate President. And the presidential election, Atiku APC exchange fire. Court will restore my stolen mandate, says the PDP candidate. You're suffering depression over defeat. APC hits back. Ruling party's victory will be short-lived, Saraki. And Business Day. Here, new 30,000 naira minimum wage means renewed stress on federal government, states' finances. Weak economy means firms likely to lay off than pay. And that's the headlines this morning, gentlemen. But two stories I'd like for us to look at is in the Daily Trust, where we have a rowdy session in Senate over militarization of elections. Dr. Akere, there was a rowdy session on the floor of the Senate yesterday over the alleged militarization of the just concluded elections. And the lawmakers from both major parties engaged in a hot row, saying that this poses a threat to our democracy.
Yeah, thank you. I think so too, that it is not the right thing. It's not the right way to go, because in 2015, if you recall, APC went to court over the use of the military in elections, and they will be, you know, will be a witness to this, that the court ruled that the military has no business in election. But then you cannot say the military has no business in the security of the country anyway. Now, but with respect to election, the military is not supposed to be involved. But what we saw in this last election, I listened to the Chief of Army Staff saying that they are not directly involved in election. Their own is just to provide support for the other agencies that are actually directly involved, like a fallback kind of. But we saw them being, you know, even at collation centers, depriving the police from having access, depriving them, and some were even aiding others to carry ballot boxes. So we need to look at it carefully. If we truly want to practice democracy, then we must follow through. And the way this election went, the role of the military, for me, there has to be something serious that should happen to those who were involved in this misdemeanor. But again, the rowdy session in the Senate, with respect to this issue, can only tell you how interest goes. Because at the end of the day, there are beneficiaries from this. There are those who lost. Yes. So both parties are now trading words. Some will tell you that the right thing to do would be to actually deploy the military, because perhaps they were the ones who have, you know, in the 2015, like I mentioned, the PDP was in power, and they felt it was the right thing to do. But those who were in opposition said this cannot be. Now the opposition is in power, doing the same thing. So you will find this, you know, trading of blames.
All right, let's get Mr. Ologun's feel on this issue. Now, the Senate wants to nip this in the bud, but when you know that for our Constitution, you know, it's the duty of the police to handle issues like this. And so if the Senate is having a rowdy session, shouldn't they be looking at the Constitution?
I'm so impressed by because I've expressed my worries because militarization is not part of democracy at all. And the issue of insecurity.
All right. Okay. We want there's an issue with your microphone, so I'd like for him to quickly touch that question.
Right. Yeah. Now look at it. The Senate has just started a discourse that will be in the long run beneficial to this country. And the only way they can do it for it to be meaningful is to ensure that they set the laws right. If you are saying that the military has no role in election, then let it be clear enough in our laws, such that should that happen, they will know who to hold accountable. I think that's the way to go about it. So at the end of this uproar in the Senate, let's go back to the real issue, the basics. And if there is any flaw that brings about this kind of scenario where anybody can do all manner of things and, this kind of thing will happen, then if there's a constitutional provision, you will find that, affected parties going to court to seek redress. Just like it happened in 2015. This time around, there will be, a clearer position that will ensure that the military is actually restricted to their constitutional duties. But again, have we actually, strengthened the police? Have we given them...
Do they have the capacity to handle the fallouts from the election?
It is because there is this, suspicion that the police cannot conveniently handle. Meanwhile, these are civil issues, which ordinarily lie squarely within, the ambit of the police. But when you have a police that you have not equipped enough to do the kind of job you want them to do, then you can only, at the end of the day, you will only give room to this kind of scenario. So I'm thinking that the government still has a role to play. And it is that if it's a question of manpower, you should employ more. If it's a question of facilities, then equip them so that they can do their job. There's no point employing somebody and not giving him the tools with which he can function to do his job. Because at the end of the day, you only give the police a bad name as a result of your own negligence in terms of provision of...
So if they are to nip this in the bud and to help our democracy, what would you expect the Senate to do?
The first thing is that the laws have to be addressed. Because the job of the Senate is simply about making laws. And again, yes, laws, oversight, and all those responsibilities. So let the law be clear on that, so that we will not have ambiguities and issues of, okay, they can be at the background. Let's know who is doing what, so that at the end of the day, people can be held accountable for what they are responsible for.
All right, so now that we are having a rowdy session, I don't know if we can speak to you now. What would you expect the Senate to do at nipping this in the bud now?
I think clear laws should be put in place to prevent the military from getting involved in electoral processes, because apparently they stepped beyond ensuring security at this last election by getting involved, even at collation centers, preventing some stakeholders from approaching, and it's an abuse of democracy. So if we have a need for sustainable democracy, which is the mission of INEC, then I think the military should be off. If not, democracy is threatened. And it's not just the Senate that is worried. The global community is worried also, because democracy is a purely civil affair. So I see desperate politicians engaging the military, and that would be quite embarrassing for the military, because the reputation may be eroded eventually, or professionalism.
For our democracy, Dr. Ekere, how much of a threat is this if we do not address this quickly? Because we are saying that our democracy must be entrenched and stable.
Yeah, indeed, democracy has to be entrenched. That is the only way you can actually enjoy the full benefits of democracy. And for it to be entrenched, there are quite a lot of factors. Because when you copy a system, you need to copy the total temperament of that system. We are yet to actually, have structures that would deepen democracy. We are yet to see, governance as a tool for service. We are yet to see this election itself as an avenue to offer service what it presents to us is an environment to make money.
All right.
Yes, that is why you find this level of desperation. If it's about service, why would I want to kill myself because I want to serve you? So that is another issue now. So we must get to that point, and this will be through institutionalization of certain processes, and at the same time, education. You know, for people to understand that the ultimate, at the end of the day, is to provide service.
All right, quickly before we move, 30,000 naira minimum wage. Federal government must discuss VAT hike with stakeholders, Mr. Logun. That's Labour speaking. We know that the federal government is looking at, you know, an increase in VAT as the wage too is also having an increase of 30,000 naira.
There was a report on that, but I think FIRS already denied it. That it's not a planned increase in VAT, because what happens then is that we will plunge into another unnecessary inflation. And my advice is that can we have a productive economy that we maximize the resources we have? For example, even our oil and gas, we have not done so much in empowering the country economically through that. At a point in time, this country depended on agriculture. So how can we generate wealth? And when we generate wealth locally, we move to the advanced level of creating an enabling environment that will attract wealth into the country. So when we have a vibrant economy, we have to talk less about minimum wage. Then people can live within the wages they earn, you know, and we have power supply, basic amenities, and that is when we can claim to have good governance that impact the people positively.
All right, Mr. Logun and Dr. Curry, thank you for your time on the paper review this morning. We have to leave it here now because we're running out of time.
Thank you.